Good morning, Birmingham. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled council meeting of Birmingham City Council for April 28, 2020 at 9:30 a.m. We're going to have our invocation by Councilor Woods and our Pledge of Allegiance by Councilor Hoyt. If everyone could please stand.
Bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to come in this morning and serve, Lord. We just ask that you continue to watch over the residents of this great city, Lord, as we battle against this pandemic, Lord. We ask that everyone come together, support each other through this difficult time, Lord. We ask that you guide our decision-making, allow us to stay focused and work together in order to execute these ideas as best we can, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. Mr. Clerk, good morning. Good morning. Can we call roll, please?
Okay. Council President Pro Tem Alexander. Here. Councilmember Hilliard. Councilmember Hoyt. Councilmember O'Quinn. Councilmember Smitherman.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councilmember Williams.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councilmember Woods.
Present.
Councilmember Abbott.
Present.
President Parker.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning. The minutes are not ready for January 7th through April 21st, 2020. Let me ask you, there are a couple of addendum items, Mr. Clark. I mean, not the ones here.
She's
but
working on them right now. There's a one extra one dealing with masks that should be added, but she'll come in a second with those.
Okay.
If you'll give me 1 second.
Okay. All righty.
Hang on.
Morning, sir. Mr. Mayor. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I left mine back in the office, but waiting on the mayor just a second.
Let me start by thanking Councilor Hoyt for a cooler looking face cover. I'll be wearing it as soon as I get done with this presentation. Good morning, Mr. President, and good morning to the entire council. I'll be very brief. I think it's important to start with a moment of silence. This is in regards to 9 years ago when the 62 tornadoes ripped through our state and brought devastation. So if we could start with a moment of silence. Thank you. 9 years ago on April 27, 2011, 62 tornadoes ripped across Alabama, leaving behind not only devastation but death. It was one of the largest tornado outbreaks in Alabama history. And according to the National Weather Service, more than 200 people died and nearly 2,000 were injured. As I stand before you today, that is still hard to believe. And I have my own personal memories of that night. My father and stepmother losing their home on Lamplighter Circle. And so our hearts are still with all of those who have lost a loved one during that storm, as well as those who have had to move forward. The next note, Mr. President and Council, is that UAB has announced that mobile testing sites for COVID-19 will start this week. One mobile testing site will be held on Thursday, April 30th, at Central Park Christian School. Again, there will be a mobile testing site held this Thursday, April 30th, at Central Park Christian School. The address is 1900 43rd Street in Inslee from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. That's 2 hours worth of testing at Central Park Christian School. There will be another mobile testing site held this Friday, May 1st, on the eastern side of town in District 1 at the Cathedral of the Cross. Again, another mobile testing site will be held this Friday, May 1st, at the Cathedral of the Cross. That address is 1480 Centerpoint Parkway. That testing will also be available from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. A note, appointments must be made in advance. And so to schedule an appointment, I would like to give everyone the phone number. The phone number is 205-975-2819. Again, that's 205-975-2819. Again, appointments must be made in advance for the mobile testing Thursday as well as the mobile testing Friday. One more quick note. Last year, the Birmingham City Council and I made appointments to the Birmingham Human Rights Commission. The terms for 2 of my appointments have since expired, and it is time for me to make 2 selections. And so I want to encourage those to apply. The deadline to apply is Thursday, May 7th. That's next week, Thursday, May 7th. One appointment will be from the nonprofit community, and the other will be from the business community. Each position is for 3 years. Anyone who has interest in serving in one of these positions should send their resume to josh.coleman, that's josh.coleman, josh.coleman at birminghamal.gov. And for more information, please visit birminghamal.gov/Human Rights Commission. Mr. President and Council, that concludes the Mayor's report. Again, thank you, Councilor.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, before you leave, are there any questions? And if you want to, because I know we're waiting on some addendum items.
Right.
And I think one of them is, if you
Yes,
want
I can
to
share.
if you just,
Yeah, I can speak to that briefly.
yeah, if y'all want to hear that and then come back and ask other questions?
That's
or
fine.
We just do it all. If you could go into the other item and then we can open it up and you can take
Right.
questions
Well,
while we're waiting on the other document.
Absolutely. I think I have a high appreciation for Councilor Crystal Smitherman, because every day for the last probably 2.5, close to 3 weeks, when I don't have a face cover on, her first remark to me is not, hey, it's not hello, it's not what's up, it's where's your face mask? And that, I appreciate that, because I think she is doing what's necessary and what's right. And I think all of us at this point, when we walk out of our home, should be wearing some type of face covering. Notice I'm shifting away from saying the word mask, because face cover implies any type of cover for your face. It can be any type of cloth. It can be a bandana. It doesn't have to be an N95 mask, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think it's important that as things may shift in the month of May, and being in a position to not practice 6 feet of social distancing, at a minimum, being in the public space outside of your home, of course with some exceptions, I think it's very imperative that as a city, like a lot of other cities across the nation have moved towards this, we should move from recommendation to an ordinance/enforcement as it relates to making sure people wear some type of face covering, because, make no mistake about this, whatever happens in May, I am of the opinion, based on not having enough data around symptoms, not having enough data around cases, etc., not having enough data around tracking and testing, that we are still on the state of an emergency. And as being on the state of an emergency, we need to have every tool in the toolbox to address preventing the spread of the COVID-19. And I think adding this tool as it relates to making face coverings mandatory is beneficial and goes to the general welfare and public safety of the supporting and keeping the public safe in the city limits of Birmingham. And so before you today, you have it. You had an original version in your email yesterday, and then you probably got a red line version after that at some point. You'll get a printed version at some point during your council meeting, so you can see the red line version versus what you originally got. In addition to that, I've had conversations with you all, so we can move towards voting on this today, but it wouldn't take effect to May 1st, so we can give our public some time to adjust to this and continue to communicate with them. And Mr. President, that's my report.
Okay, are there questions about, start Council Smith and we'll just work our way around.
So I was reading an article, I think it was Houston or San Diego, they have the same thing. I talked to you about this yesterday. And the police officers, instead of fining people at first, they were giving people masks and trying to educate people at first. So I was, I guess, giving a proposal for that with our people, because it's going to take time for people to get used to having on masks, which I think people are going to comply with, but I think can we just have a little bit of just an open period where the police help people, and then after a while, then they can go into citation.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem. I think, there's a grace window before this starts. I think that's really important. I think the other thing is using our platforms to communicate this. And then this is my favorite part. I think you all have, if you got here, that means at a certain point you drove from your home to City Hall. Or you've had to go to a grocery store or a big box store. So if you're like me, I know it seems to be that a minimum of half of the people that are out engaging in essential activity are already voluntarily doing this. And so I'm encouraged by what I already see. I don't think this would be too hard to come into compliance with. But yes, I do see Chief Smith and his police, just like they did with the shelter-in-place ordinance, having a window of educating folk. But I want to make this clear. People need to take this seriously because we're not out of the neck of the woods. And I think this is the right thing to do from a public safety and public health standpoint. But to answer to your question, Councilor Smith, the answer is yes.
And I guess we'll just talk through that once the actual ordinance comes up and some of the educational aspects of it. We're just asking general questions now about any questions before the mayor, or what is that, Mr. Mayor?
She has them right
Okay, well, she's bringing them in, yeah. Right, while she's doing that, if there are any other, we could take just general questions that way. That gives everybody a few minutes to ask questions. So Councilor Woods is going to start and work our way around about anything for the mayor in general. Okay. Councilor Hoyt, do you have anything in general?
Yeah, we just wanted to add, because I had an opportunity to talk with Dr. Curry yesterday with UAB, and there are specific persons that they wanted to screen, that they're not just doing asystematic folk at this juncture. And so I didn't see the email, but he was to send me a copy of the email they sending out, so that we don't have persons showing up that they're not going to test. And so we just people need to know that. Did you got the email?
I did. We shared. To follow up on that, I think there's going to be a lot more coordination going on so that everyone is aware of things, not just at the last minute. I know a lot of things are moving, but I think the goal is to make sure that you have an event on Tuesday, but you put it out on Monday morning. So we want to coordinate our activities a little bit more so there's more time for people to realize and understand that there is testing available. But we're going to focus short-term and long-term, and the longer-term approach is making sure all citizens have the opportunity to be tested, whether they have the symptoms or not. They just want to be tested. And so we need to work on a larger, big picture type of approach to it. The pop-ups are good because that's addressing some individuals with the symptoms, but the question, I received a call is, if I don't live in that immediate area, then I'm not going to be able to be tested. And I think we're going to work through all of those and make sure that it's expanded to make sure all 99 neighborhoods, people throughout the city, whether they have the symptoms and or don't show symptoms, but they have the opportunity to be tested, even if that's the 5-minute test, 10-minute test, or if they're doing the swabs and send them off to the lab. So I think we've got to have a bigger picture with everyone working together, all parties working together.
But I also think, Mr. President, there's an urgency, and the longer we wait, the sicker folk get, and then you have folk, everybody don't present the same way, as I understand it, and reading about the disease and what has been displayed on television and airways and what have you. And so we got to really decide based on how many test kits we could get or whatever, but we need to, it's already an emergency, and the longer we wait, people continue to die or get, contract this, this virus. And, we've had at least a month and a half at this, and that really needs to be, if we have to help with buying the tests or whatever it is that needs to be done, these are our citizens, and I just want to see this. When you're in the airport, if it's cold orange, it's high alert.
Yes, sir.
I agree. We at orange right now.
Councilor Hoyt, to your point, I agree with you in all aspects. We have a committee of the whole meeting tomorrow. If we need to schedule another one later this week, but we will have more deliberations, conversations tomorrow.
Yeah, well,
to have more of a comprehensive plan and bringing in all the parties.
Let me say this here too, Mr. President. We all represent districts, and if there's a message got to go out, then it's the council needs to be included. If you got an email about COVID, every last one of us should have an email, or you should forward that to everybody.
Councilor Hoyt, I think I thought everybody received the email, and I think anytime I get anything, I'm forwarding it on to everybody. And so I think you all can see every time I receive an email, because I don't know if it's just sent to me, so I forward it on to, I think you look at it on the daily.
I got a call, not an email yesterday. I got a call to say they were coming out to Bush Hills. And that was the other thing. They said Central Park, no, Bush Hills in Central Park. But Central Park is not in Bush Hills. But if you had called the council, you would have known that. I'm not saying you, but they would have known that.
I understand. That's what we've got to
There needs to be a communication with these councils. I know my district.
Councilor Hoyt, I agree with you 150%, and that's what we're going to make sure that we work those lines of communications, or where if it's UAB, Minority Health doing something, there needs to be coordinated effort with the council being at the table on the front end. I agree with you 150%. So, and that's what we're going to make sure that happens. But anytime I receive anything, I think you all see from the time I receive it, within 5 minutes, it's going out to everybody. And so, so we'll discuss it more tomorrow if that's.
Yeah. And it's really not a question for you.
Yes, sir.
In as much as those who are meeting, who.
Well, I'm not part of
calls.
those meetings.
Yeah.
But
But you can send a message to them that we want to include the council, because we're the one, we elected by the citizens in our respective districts.
yes, sir.
And
I
so
agree
they
with
trust our voices, I would hope.
Yes, sir. I agree with you 150%, and we will have more discussions tomorrow at Committee of the Whole. Is that okay, sir?
That's fine.
Yes, sir. Okay, we'll do. Dr. Quinn.
Yes, sir. I have a question for the mayor. So yesterday I got the opportunity to meet with some small business owners, specifically folks who are involved in the restaurant and bar business, and they are thinking about when circumstances arise that they can begin to reopen beyond the things that we have done through Birmingham Strong. They're thinking about what additional assistance the city may be able to provide. It's, of course, in the city's best interest that businesses, as many businesses as possible, survive this period of hardship. And they're specifically asking, is it going to be feasible for the city of Birmingham to provide some form of temporary tax relief, whether that be sales tax, occupational tax, so on and so forth, in order to help them get back up to speed? Can you speak to that, please?
I can, with some initial thoughts based on what you just shared. I think the first thing is to acknowledge the pain and the fear and the anxiety a lot of our small business owners are facing right now. And then what I realized is I knew there was a codependency in the city of Birmingham as it relates to the city of Birmingham's ability to deliver services, and then people who voluntarily want to be in our city limits to have their business. That dollar we talk about, as far as every dollar that's generated that comes into the city, we know a minimum of 80 cents of it is the business license and the sales tax and the use tax and the occupational tax, and when you throw in the lodging tax based on events in our city, and then people going to those same small businesses for eating and retail and bars, etc. That codependency, they're hurting, and then we realize, hey, the city's in a position to be hurting as well because we're not receiving that. And I imagine that conversation you had with them, you saw that fear and anxiety in person. The question, which is, are we in a position to provide some type of tax relief? Here's the honest answer. I don't know. I would think if things open before June 30th, that would be a harder hurdle to actually jump over. And that's because in the next to your last quarter you're in, I think it would be hard in the middle of a pandemic to change your tax structure. But in addition to that, not knowing financially where we are, I don't know if you can just do it from a blanket standpoint or even plan it out of offering that form of tax release if that codependency relationship is compromised. If that makes any sense.
So previously, we had talked about, you had mentioned that the city would have some assessment of how dramatic the revenue, decreased revenue for March, and the date for having that assessment was April 28th, is what you told us previously.
It's tomorrow.
We're gonna have that meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Committee of the whole.
So we get that report. All right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
we were kind of just waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
until then.
we'll know what we did in March, and remember, we need to look at this not the same. In the ideal world, March's burden is not as heavy as April because March was only 2 weeks. So I think a lot of y'all recall March 14th, the world was still out. It was St. Patrick's Day, and whether it was daytime or nighttime, a lot of people up until the 14th and even 15th were still out in our streets, in our city, in our neighborhoods. Retail was still open, etc. So we won't know the full force of what happened in April until the end of May. And knowing what happened in all of March, but especially those last 2 weeks, we should know tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. So just as a suggestion, as you contemplate the possibility of some form of tax relief, back in during the financial crisis, there was a state fund established to help with foreclosures, and it was called the Hardest Hit Fund, and it was to help those persons who are at risk of losing their homes because of foreclosure. And that brings to mind that in the current situation, some businesses are impacted more than others, and particularly those businesses that were ordered to close just by the nature of their business. And I think bars are some of the businesses that they couldn't operate under any circumstances just because of the social distancing requirements and so on and so forth. So as we move forward, if we could contemplate, if not for all small businesses with 50 employees or less, maybe identifying a hardest hit subset of businesses that we may be able to do something for them to help them have a little bit, more space to get back up and running. Just something for you to consider.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And before I move on, I think that's what Councilor Hort was talking about. We've got to figure out, one, how do we help our small businesses, but also how do we put together also addressing testing citywide. So I think there might be a package that we can look at. We'll talk about it more tomorrow. If that's, once we get the numbers, then I think we'll have follow-up tomorrow on your issue, also what Councilor Hort, and let's see if we have to be, get into, testing and providing some funding and explore any and all. But I think until we hear from our financial conditions, I think let's receive that report and then bring this back up after we hear the report. But we'll discuss it tomorrow if everybody's in agreement with that. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes,
okay.
sir. Yes. Dr. Quinn, I mentioned that before we passed the CBBG budget about the hardest hit. The hardest hit doesn't really cover business, covers mortgages, covers resident. It doesn't deal with the business. And what I was trying to say, for us to go back and revisit, we got money in there for rehab, $300,000 for rehab. Take that and put it, because people are going to either lose their home, or they're about to lose their home, or they're going to lose their apartment. And I'm just saying that would have been an opportunity for us. I said, let's go back and recalculate or reprogram those dollars, because that's who it's going to affect. People will lose their home and they'll lose their apartment. And the hardest hit fund is specifically to keep people in their homes. And that's going to be of a great concern to ours. But nobody heard me. Y'all just passed it. But I was trying to get you all to see that we need to redirect those dollars to where it's really going to help people to maintain their residence. And that's what the hardest hit funds are for.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll pick up on that tomorrow afternoon. Councilor Hilliard, President Pro Tem, we're good. All right, let's move to the consent agenda. Mr. Clerk.
Consent agenda starts on page 2 with item 1. Then on page 9, we have item 2 on consent. Page 10, we have items 3, 4, and 6 on consent. Item 1 has been requested to be withdrawn by the mayor's office. Item 5, I'm sorry, apologize. Item 5 on page 10 should be withdrawn. Page 11, we have items 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 on consent. But I need to note the changes for items 10, 11, and 13. If you'll bear with me a quick second. Item 10 should read a resolution authorizing the purchasing agent to execute an emergency third-party administration contract extension with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama without competitive bidding under the same terms and conditions provided in the existing contract, and to the extent that is in the budget, and will not negatively impact the budget for a period not to exceed 6 months from the date this resolution is effective, in order to allow time for competitive bidding. Item 11, a resolution authorizing the purchasing agent to execute an emergency third-party administration contract with extension with behavioral health systems without competitive bidding under the same terms and conditions provided in the existing contract, and to the extent that is in the budget and will not negatively impact the budget for a period not to exceed 6 months from the date this resolution is effective, in order to allow time for competitive bidding. And item 13, a resolution authorizing the purchasing agent to execute an emergency third-party administration contract extension with Express Scripts without competitive bidding under the same terms and conditions provided in the existing contract, and to the extent that is in the budget and will not negatively impact the budget for a period not to exceed 6 months from the date this resolution is effective, in order to allow time for competitive bidding. And we pick back up with the consent agenda on page 13 with items 17, 18, and 19. Page 14, we have items 20, 22, and 23 on consent. Page 15, we have items 24, 25, 26, and 27 on consent. Please note that on item number 26, the amount should be $223,460 instead of the $182,270. That's on item number 26, $223,460. Page 16, we have items 28, 29, 30, and 31 on consent. And we have several addendum items that you should have before you. And I don't know if any of those are on consent. Let's see.
39 through 43, I believe.
Let's see here. If I can find them. You got your addendums? I don't see them. You have your copy? Addendums.
There you go.
39 through 35 through 43, Mr. Clerk.
Okay. None of them are on consent.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, couple things. I guess let's start. Let me ask you real quick. On 39, it should be a resolution and not an ordinance.
That's 39, that's
It's
correct.
just, it's a resolution.
When we
And
get
we'll
to
just-
it, we'll
Okay,
change
we'll
it.
just, I want to go ahead and change it because I want to put
Yes,
it on
sir.
consent. And I also want to put item 21 on consent.
What is this?
On page,
I'm sorry, item 21 is on page 14, and the addendum, it's item number 39, it should say a resolution urging the Jefferson County delegation. That's the way it should read.
So we're adding
and-
21?
Yes, sir, on consent. Those could be both of those.
You talk about 21, please.
Okay, you want to keep it off?
No, I mean, if you could say something now, I didn't see
Council
the
President
backup.
Parker, I can speak to that. Council Hoyt, this is for people, basically we're welcoming people of any race, age, gender into Birmingham if they need it, people who are immigrants. We're just saying Birmingham is basically having welcoming arms. We're going to do certain things. It's an organization of cities that come together and do certain activities and programs to make sure that immigrants feel welcomed here.
What was the other organization we had?
Are you talking about the Sanctuary City?
No,
No, this is not.
the Scotty Coastal used to
Yeah.
be. What was that?
Sister City.
Sister City. So this is different from Sister City.
Yes. Is that right, Mayor? Wolfen? Yes.
Okay.
All right. What others do you have? I have a couple more. I'll come back to me. I have one question about just getting some clarification, but Dr. Quinn, I was going to start it there, and we'll work our way around. You have anything? You're good? Okay, everybody's good. Council Woods? No, you're good. Council Williams?
Yeah, I'd like to remove items 10, 11, and 13.
Okay. 10, 11, 13, or?
Council Parker. Well, I'll go after Abbott and Hoyt. Councilor Abbott and Hoyt.
Okay, Councilor Abbott, you want 12 off as well?
No.
Okay, all right, 12 still on. Councilor Abbott?
thank you. I would like to add to consent item, let me find it again, item 9 on page 11. And then on the addendum, items 13.
Item 9 is withdrawn, I'm sorry.
Oh, 9 is withdrawn?
Yes, ma'am, by
I
the
missed-
mayor's office.
I missed that. Okay, withdrawn by the mayor's office, okay. And then, items 35, 36, and 37 on the addendum.
No, yeah, okay.
And that's all.
Okay, Councilor Hoyt?
Okay.
think he's still. You want me to come back to you, Councilor Howard?
Well, yeah, so are we finished over at, on 12th Street, Mr. Mayor?
Which item you making reference to?
I'm sorry, item 35. No, this is,
Yesterday they told us, yes.
12th Street, Rickwood. We finished with the landscaping on both sides and the street improvements there.
This
Sir,
is
I
on
want to
the
say yes,
agenda.
but let me,
Because it's on here to transfer monies from that.
oh,
project.
yes, we are complete. Yes, sir.
Okay,
That project's been complete for quite some time, sir.
okay.
You
Yeah,
want,
that's fine.
okay, let me ask you, on, can we get an update? I see we've got grants on the agenda, and I know we had a conversation a while back about some other grants.
These are grants for the city to receive, so if you want to update on,
Yeah, there was an issue a couple of months ago about, we just had a conversation around some of the
yeah,
other
well, maybe,
grants,
maybe,
so.
how about this? I'll tell you what, maybe not tomorrow's committee of the whole, but either your next committee of the whole or your next B&F committee meeting, sharing that information with Mr. Smith and his team to compile some information to share with the council. And it doesn't have to necessarily be, it doesn't have to be a public presentation. If you don't want it, we can share the information via email or other form of communication if you want prior to an actual next meeting.
Okay, that's all I was just asking. We'll work through it. Okay, they can stay on. I just want us to have some deep, some, that was 16 and 17. Okay, all right. We're ready now for a
Council.
motion.
Are you still good on items 10 and 11?
Yeah, so we can add items, we can add items 10, 11, and 12 back to consent agenda.
10, 11, and 13.
Excuse me, 10, 11, and 13 back to consent agenda. And just want to make sure that we kept item 16 on consent, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. I think that's
Yes,
going to be
ma'am.
a great thing for the
Can
city.
I add items 32, 33, 34? They have to go through.
They're not items, 33 and 34 not items.
Yeah, 32,
Alright.
yeah, we add that one. 32, yes, ma'am. Yeah, 33 and 34, Mr. Clerk, you just have to announce those. Okay, yeah, but 32, yes, ma'am. Okay. All right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
You got the public hearing.
Yeah, let me give you a little tagline. All items designated as consent are routine and non-controversial and will be approved by one motion. No separate discussion of these items will be permitted unless a council member, the mayor, or citizen interested in a public hearing so request. If so, such item or items will revert to its normal place on the agenda order of business. All matters of permanent operation will be read. All other matters will be announced by reading the item number only. All public hearings will be announced. So we're ready for a vote on the consent agenda.
Motion, please.
Move approval.
So it's Council Williams and second by Councilor Abbott for the consent agenda.
Okay. Voting should be open.
It's
I
not
see
working.
nobody's up. Councilor Pro Tem Alexander. Yes. Councilmember Hilliard. Aye. Councilmember Hoyt.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Quinn. Yes. Councilmember Smitherman.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams. Aye. Councilmember Woods is out. Councilmember Abbott.
Aye.
President Parker.
Aye.
That
Okay,
motion
the
gets
consent agenda passes. Let's go to item 43, Mr. Clerk,
Item 43.
please.
Okay, item 43, the language changed a little bit here. It should read, an ordinance to require wearing face coverings and masks in public in the extent, or face coverings or masks in public in the city of Birmingham during the COVID-19 public health emergency and recovery. And it is an item of permanent operation, so I need you to see if we're going to entertain passage today.
I move for unanimous consent.
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion on
I
the item,
move the
please.
item.
Second.
Okay, now it's before us. Mr. Mayor, anything else you want to add? This is regarding the,
Face covering.
yes, sir.
Just thank you to this council for always never hesitating to do the right thing in the best interest of the citizens of Birmingham. This is the right thing to do. Very appreciative of the council. Thank you.
Okay, and just real quick, because Councilor Smithman had issue of, this goes into effect May 1st at 9 a.m., 9 p.m., 10, I mean, what?
I would just say effective May 1st. So that's 12 a.m. May 1st.
And so, and how long will it go?
We'll assess. I think I've had conversations with enough counselors, but mainly Counselor Hunter Williams, who says, let's see how this looks as tracking, where we are with tracking, testing, number of cases tested positive, et cetera, in the month of May, as definitely the first 2 weeks, and then being in the position to come back before this council the May 18th, which is a Monday. Tuesday, May 19th. To be in a position to address this body and give an update on where we are.
Okay. And just one other real quick in time to face mask into the fact that our current shelter in place expires April 30th, but you'll give us some guidance on that probably tomorrow.
Yes. So remember, we have two things before us locally that I want this body to keep in mind. I'll definitely be in a better position to share with you all
tomorrow.
Today and tomorrow.
Okay.
We don't know what the governor is going to do today. We do understand the state has its own shelter-in-place ordinance that is currently set to expire Thursday at 5 p.m. I want to be clear, the city of Birmingham, based on a number of things, needs to be in a position to protect the general welfare and safety of our residents. Remember, we under our own city of Birmingham state of emergency, and we are under our own shelter-in-place ordinance. In a perfect world, the city of Birmingham is able to coordinate with the state, coordinate with our Jefferson County health officer, and we can make the best decisions. But I think this body has shown that we don't mind tagging along with folk, but we don't mind doing what we think is in the best interest for our residents either. So we're in a better position to assess after what she publicly shares, and then I can come back to this body today and tomorrow. I look forward to that conversation.
Okay. And we can also, tomorrow's committee hall if we need to.
Yes, sir.
Have more conversation then.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Councilor Smithman, I wanted to recognize you for anything else that you wanted. Did we cover everything that you needed?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Williams?
Yeah, so this is my first time seeing the red line version. I got the version from you the other day, but didn't get a red line version with these changes. One question I had is, so, and this is really around enforcement. I have a few questions. One is around enforcement. Does that look like a summons to appear in court?
It could be. I want you to think of a curfew violation. Like we've had an existing curfew ordinance for over 10 years. So consider it as the same as that, where you have the option to pay a fine. You have the option, right, to pay a fine prior to a date, or you can appear. Those are both options that are available.
And municipal court sets that fine?
Yes, up to $500.
Okay, and then the other thing is something that I asked, but I'm a little confused about.
Actual date?
No, well, that would have been nice, but in terms of if we do have businesses open that people cannot wear masks because of the type of business, i.e. a haircut place, a restaurant place, anything like that, where a patron, not the people providing the service, but a patron cannot wear a mask, there's no exception.
Nothing in here on
for
that. That's on purpose for a couple reasons. We literally today don't know what the governor is going to say, so I think at any point of time, retail is different from a restaurant. Restaurant is different from a bar. A bar is different from a public space that holds convention space. And so knowing what the governor is going to do, I think we're in a better position. But I want us to also use common sense. I think we all know any exception would be if a person's eating. You can't eat with the face cover on. And so I think that's implied. But I think as it relates to how we move forward in the month of May, based on what's going to happen with restaurants, which has not been determined, we're in a position to modify this. I hear you.
We can always next Tuesday if you want to address something.
I think we're in a better position, Counselor, if you bear with me, to literally let's see what the actual state says at 11 a.m. today. So maybe in a position to have another council meeting prior to Thursday at 5 p.m.
Okay. So we're going to go to Councilor Hilliard. We'll come back to Councilor Williams. Councilor Hilliard.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. First of all, let me say to the mayor, I really appreciate you thinking about the citizens in this manner to bring forth an ordinance such as this. We're in some very interesting times right now. Things are continuously changing. As I watch our national media and our national news and listen to a lot of our health experts, we know that throughout the Southern Belt and throughout the South, and mainly Democratic type jurisdiction, that the numbers are not going down.
Hey, Councilor Hilliard, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Are we having difficulties hearing Max? Or if you could hold on 1 second, Councilor. Just want to make sure everyone's able to hear you.
Testing. Can you hear me now? First of all, I said thank you for bringing this particular piece of legislation to the table. It shows that you're thinking about the constituents that you represent. I know that we all still want business to move ahead. I'm definitely 100% there. I do think that we need to get our country, our cities, and our states going, doing business as soon as possible, but not at the expense of safety of the constituents that we represent. And I really appreciate you having that in mind while we put together this. And we know as a body that things will change from time to time, and we will have to tweak our legislation as we move ahead. But to the general public, I think at every front they should understand that we are doing the very best we can to protect them as well as protect ourselves and our families. It is very important that we realize that, unfortunately, that in the communities that we represent, it is really spreading pretty fast. And what we have to continuously understand at every front, we must find ways to get the word out to the community that it's just not about masks, but gloves and the whole cleanliness thing. We want to continue to push ahead. So at any effort that you or any one of us can push that, I think that we should. I like the fact that we're still coordinating with businesses. I was just moving around in the business community on yesterday, and I realized that our business community is really hurting. And of course, if they're hurting, ultimately we're hurting. Yes, so we're joined together. So I would like to continue to keep the open dialogue with our business community and the constituents that we represent, but not at the fact that we wipe out the people we represent, and then at that point there'll be nobody to either work in the businesses or go into a restaurant and eat in a business.
Right.
Yeah. So to that prevail, I really appreciate you being steadfast, listening. It makes me feel better to know that this council is listening to that, and we're working together to make a difference. Thank you.
Just
Thank you, Mr. President.
Just a point, Mr. President, very quick. It's in response to Councilor Hilliard's point and the point that Councilor Hoyt made earlier about some people in our city can be symptomatic or asymptomatic. Let me the short version. You all have this, but I think it's important to read to the public as it relates to Section 1 on page 3 under A, the definition. Face covering or mask, a device to cover the nose and mouth of a person to impede, right? What we're attempting to do with this face cover is to impede the spread of the saliva or other fluids during speaking, talking, coughing, laughing, sneezing, singing, whatever it is. You and I both know that there literally may be situations where you can't be 6 feet apart. And so if you can't be 6 feet apart, then the next best thing is to make sure that if we know how this spreads through saliva, through a possible sneeze, cough, talking, etc., then the face cover is to make sure none of us are spreading something, even if we know we may have it or may not have it. So this is very helpful.
Okay. Did you have something? Dr. Quinn, then we'll go back to Council Williams.
Of course, just as a preface, I think it's unfortunate that we're in this circumstance to begin with, and I know that it's not really part of our social norms to be out in public having our face covered, and I think that an ordinance of this nature helps make it a little bit more socially acceptable if the expectation is that you have a face covering on. I just want to say that this is a measure, although unfortunate that we have to do this. I think it's one of the things that we really must do to be responsible in protecting folks' health in order to get the economy moving again, in order for us to get back to normal. And as maybe has been alluded to previously, the city of Birmingham and the services that we deliver are very much tied to the health of the business community. And if we don't get our business community back up and running, then all of the services that the citizens of Birmingham enjoy currently are at risk. So a couple of weeks ago, we temporarily suspended curbside collection of recycling. And I don't know about you, Councilor Abbott, but I've heard quite a bit of pushback from that. Well, just imagine if your trash collection was temporarily suspended to, say, once per week or once every 2 weeks, or maybe the brush and rubbish collection, instead of being once every 3 weeks, is now once every 2 months. I mean, that's the types of scenarios that we're looking at if we don't get our businesses back up and running. So I say all of that to say I don't, particularly like the idea of having to wear a face mask all the time. But if it's necessary for us to get back up and running and get our business community functioning again, and ultimately the city of Birmingham in a better position to continue delivering services, then this is what we need to do.
Okay. All right. Council Williams, you can close us out. You had some follow-up.
Yeah, I think that the mayor just answered some of my concerns about this. I am willing to vote in favor of this because I do think it's something that's needed as the governor gives her guidance into opening certain aspects of retail, essentially. I think that it is important that we have something like this as people start to move about and interact with each other in a more proximate way than they have in the past. My concerns have been around the enforcement of this, what that looks like, and to make sure that we are not over-policing any segment of the population and using this as probable cause to do so. So those were my concerns. I think that we're at a good place on that, and I think that we're going to further discuss that after the passage of this to make sure that that the city is handling this ordinance in the correct way. So I think I'm ready to call for the vote.
Okay, all right, I want to call on Councilor Hoyt, and then we'll vote. Councilor?
Is that okay with you, Councilor Williams?
It's fine.
Mr. Boyd, I'm always willing to yield the floor to you, sir.
Yeah. Well, and let me say that what I think is going to drive this is when we start saying definitively who this is affecting. We hadn't said that. Nothing in this ordinance talks about that. And, you know, I receive, you know, bits and pieces of information with respect that to date, and I get different numbers, that only 7,000 people have been tested in a city that constitutes 212,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough. That's not enough, and if, you know, we keep going around this issue, but the education piece, I think Councilor, somebody said that earlier in this meeting, but if you don't do the education, all this is for naught. You can put whatever you got in place, but until people understand that disproportionately the African Americans are contracting this disease, and that doesn't mean that they're the only one, but disproportionately. This is not coming from me. This is coming from the medical community. Then, you know, we have a responsibility as a city to help drive that understanding, and so people just don't, as I said yesterday, cavalier about, you know, what they need to be doing in terms of safe distances. I mean, but I just don't see it here. I really don't. And maybe, Mr. President, that maybe we need to do a public service announcement. You know, this council to help drive this home and call every medium that we have to say, listen, this is what you got to do. You know, and because people they listen to us, and they respect, you know, what it is that we try to do, but if we're not driving this home collectively, then it's going to be, we're going to have more casualties.
Yes, sir.
On our hands. I'm just, you know, you ain't got to like me, you ain't got to, you know, I don't, you know, none of that. But it ain't about me. It's not about you. It's about our citizens, and what do we do to maximize the efforts in terms of trying to get a message to a group of folk who may think that this is, you know, may not take this serious, but I think the vast majority of folks are. You know, as I told the mayor yesterday, I called the po-po on some folk across the street from me. But you're going to have to do that, and that message needs to be driven home to everybody. You know, where you got these large crowds of folk that's playing cards on the front porch, you know, with no mask, no nothing, and we have a moral responsibility in terms of trying to help drive this home. You know, I mean, that's why we were elected, to help to do that, and we're in a crisis. And I don't think it's going away. I don't care what the governor does in the next 2-3 days or 2 months. I think we're going to be here for a minute. I really do. I really do. And I'm not a prophet, but I do believe we're going to be here for a minute, because you still have not tested those persons who are asymptomatic, who may not present the same kind of physical response to this virus as others, and that's going to be the thing that really have us in a fix Because if people could get sick and they can't pay their house note, their car note, I mean, it's gonna be a big problem. I just wish we just take it serious. You know, we got to put the politics aside and just try to deal with how do we save people in city of Birmingham, black, blue, brown, whatever, but we need to do that, and I just hadn't seen that.
Okay. Counselor, we get it. We're going to work together. You and I will work together. We'll have more to say tomorrow at tomorrow's meeting, but I get it. I hear you, and that's what we all been doing, so it's serious. Yeah. Yes, sir. All right, we'll have more to say tomorrow at our meeting, but we all get it. So thank you. All right, Council Williams, you're good on. You're ready to vote on this item?
Yeah, still ready to vote.
Okay, we're ready to vote on item 43.
Okay. Council Pro Tem Alexander.
Aye.
Councilmember Hilliard.
Aye.
Councilmember Hoyt.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Quinn. Yes. Councilmember Smitherman.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Councilmember Woods.
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott.
Yes.
President Parker.
Yes.
That vote should be.
All right, item passes. Yes, sir. I had one more announcement that you wanted to have. You want to have?
Very briefly, the leadership of HICA is here. They were here to speak to and in support of the Welcoming Cities, and they have a message they would like to share with this body.
Okay. All right. You can be brief and
we will be very brief.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, council members. Thank you so much for passing the Welcoming Birmingham amendment. We were so touched that that was added to the consent agenda. We think that this continues Birmingham's place in history as recognizing that we are a place for all people and we work for racial equity and social justice. So thank you so much. This is really important, especially in this moment when so many people are hurting. Councilman Smitherman, thank you so much for being our champion. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
All right, have a great day. All right. Ms. Clark, all right, we're ready to call up item 38, please.
Okay, item, okay, 38, actually, I can call it 38, but we have a conflict because you have two items that are the
No,
same.
item 38.
I mean, I can call it up, I'm just saying.
I want you to call it up. That's the only one we're going to deal with. There's another item, there's different versions, but we'll call up item 38, please, sir.
Item 38, an ordinance to amend Title 12 of the General Code of the City of Birmingham, 1980 by adding and enacting a new chapter 3.10 establishing standards for small cell facilities in the City of Birmingham. And again, it's an item of permanent operation as the other item was, and I need you to see.
Yeah, and let me just warn everybody, if anybody votes, well, let me just ask procedurally, Ms. Clerk, and everybody can do.
Yes,
but
sir.
we need to get unanimous consent to get both items, item 38 up for discussion, but.
To discuss, right?
Right. Could you kind of talk to someone, how does that work? It needs unanimous consent for it to be discussed today, and if not, what happens is
It'll come back. If you don't get UC today, the item will reappear next week.
Oh, okay. All right. Just giving out what the if-then kind of scenarios. Okay. Are you ready for item 38?
I think I read it.
Okay.
So I need UC to, if you were going to entertain passage today.
Move for unanimous consent.
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay. All right. Item 38 is.
I need a motion on it
Okay.
No.
to get it. Oh, you said no, Councilor?
Yes.
Hoyt.
You did on that?
You
No.
don't want to discuss it?
Yeah.
No, I'm saying if you vote no, that means we can't discuss it today. This is item 38.
Yeah, because I think, we have sidetracked in terms of what we do normally in committee.
Oh, no. There's two items. Item 8 is what was put on originally by the city attorney's office. I submitted an ordinance, item 38, which has some different language. And so if you vote, if there's a no vote, then item 38 can't be discussed as well. So item 38 is the same, the synopsis, but it's different versions of it. The city attorney's office submitted item 8. And item 38 was brought with, that was an addendum that was brought forth where I submitted that item, where there's a different viewpoint from some of the local, I think, let me just put it like this. Item 8 was, I think, more the industries, where I think AT&T and Verizon had some thoughts on that. Item 38 has more feedback and suggestions from Alabama Power. So we're trying to, so item 38 is the one that is before us, not item 8 at the time.
That's correct. I just want to mention to you, each stand on his own now, but only
Right.
one can pass.
Each stands on its own, so we're trying to bring up item 38, if we could get a unanimous consent.
Okay, so this is item 38 that you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yes, sir. Item 38 needs to be unanimous. Okay, so you're good with us taking up item 38?
Yes.
Okay,
I
all right.
withdraw.
Okay, all right. Item 38 is before us
Boy, I
now.
need a motion to get.
Move the item.
Second.
Okay.
All right, item 38 is before us. What we have here is small cell issue that has been before us probably over a number of years, probably I think dates back to 2017, where we've had the 5G on your phone. If you notice, it's an upgrading of the whole cellular industry. And so I think this has been going on not only here locally, but on the state level and then across the country with the FCC. And so a lot of conversations have been going on. Currently, there's legislation pending in Montgomery with the legislature dealing with statewide small cells. And then at the same time, there's been a parallel track where each cities have been asked to pass local ordinances. And over the last 2+ years, that's been an issue that we've been dealing with. And so I think now comes the time for us to decide where we are, and it's time to move forward. So that's why we have the items before us. The items were, about a week and a half ago, the Utilities Committee did ask both all parties to go back, have more conversations to try to find compromise. Obviously, that has not happened because on Wednesday, there was an item placed on the agenda, which is item 8, placed on the agenda, which did not have all parties to try to work out an agreement or compromise. So before us we've got two versions. Since the industries and all parties concerned couldn't resolve it, it has now gotten to us. And so we're going to decide today which item, and let's put this to bed. So with that, item 38 is before us. I know Mr. Pilcher has some thoughts as far as guidance on item 38. Mr. Pilcher, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, President Parker. Thank you, council
Pull the
members.
mic to you.
Yeah, Mike, pull the mic to you just a little bit more.
Okay, is that better? Thank you for the opportunity to present Alabama Power's perspective. My name is Chad Pilcher. I represent Alabama Power Company. We've been engaged in discussions and negotiations with the city and with the telecom industry on this matter since September of last year. We thought we had an agreement on November 12th, but ultimately that did not come to fruition. As you know, this ordinance creates a new regulatory scheme to govern small cell deployment in the city of Birmingham. Alabama Power uses a number of wireless communications devices for its core electric purposes, as well as for a number of safety and lighting initiatives that are specific to the city of Birmingham. Those are not small cells. So what our concern is to make sure that those non-small cell activities don't inadvertently get captured by this small cell ordinance. This ordinance in Birmingham is unique from others in that some of the definitions use terms that really hit at the types of hardware that Alabama Power uses for both those safety purposes as well as for electric purposes. Those terms that are included in this ordinance include meters, power switches, power amplifiers, and system of electrical conductors. Also, this ordinance is this Birmingham ordinance is focused on hardware. It doesn't have qualifiers for the services that are offered through that hardware. So what Alabama Power has proposed is a number of revisions and specifically exemption language that will ensure that these small cell activities don't inadvertently get captured. The previous version presented by the city, one thing that was said is that it included an exemption similar to the state small cell bill. Now that bill is not passed, it's not yet law, but the language does not follow the state small cell exemption. In fact, that exemption specifically in the state bill refers to the business activities of an electric provider. It's over a page on that exemption language. What was presented by the city and the telecom industry referred to utility-related purposes, utility activities. So the concern there is that when you talk about a camera, a safety camera up on a pole, that's not a utility activity. And if there wasn't broader language, that could be covered.
All right, so questions here from, we'll start here, we'll work around, and we'll hear it out. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, for me, the issue is really around aesthetics, the proliferation of them, and and quite frankly, I have not heard anybody talk about that, because what I don't want to do is for it to be intrusive. And I know that some of our areas are more densely populated, and so I don't want all of them to be in Ensley. I'm just saying, in places where we got residents, and I think before we were dealing with some mobile, whatever, they were going to put this thing on the posts and what have you, but they were aesthetically displeasing, and I think we still have to maintain some aesthetics with respect to what you're trying to do with small cells. And so, can you speak to that, or who can speak to that?
Yeah. That'd probably be the telecom industry more specifically. Alabama Power is not going to be deploying small cells, and so from our perspective, but there are a number of provisions in both ordinances that address that.
Okay. Councilor Abbott, you ready? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, in looking at the item in our packet and this new item, I can't tell by looking at the new item what the changes are. I don't see any red line or mark through or underline or anything, so exactly what
I think they were
changed?
sent out via email yesterday. I think Mr. McDaniel sent that out via email, but let's get you, if we could
Well,
get
maybe
you a
we
hard
could
copy.
let's have the one that's,
That's what I was saying. I was going to ask them to print out the printed version. It was sent by email, but we'll get it printed out in a couple. If we could go around and give us a couple of minutes to get a printed version of the red line. Yeah, the red line version.
yeah. And
Okay.
I my personal feeling at this point is I just absolutely hate having something stuck under my nose that I haven't read and try to compare items and determine what we're doing. We're hearing the Alabama Power version of the story, and we're not, maybe we will hear everybody else's version if they're behind these masks in the audience, but
What we asked, the committee asked about a week and a half ago, was for all parties to go out, work, and then come back and report back to the committee. That, to my knowledge, did not occur. And so the goal is always, compromise is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. And that's what we've been urging all parties to come together to find, compromise. But at this point, there's no one seems to want to bend. So it's now we just take up both versions. We've asked repeatedly. I think that meeting we had was about a week and a half ago, and we asked everyone to work together, and then let's try to, let them work it out, and then come back to the council with some type of, agreeable, piece of, an ordinance. That has not occurred, and therefore that's why we're dealing with this now. But the goal is always to have everyone to get in the room and they work it out and don't come out until it's worked out. We've asked them to do that probably 4 or 5 different times as far as I'm aware of. It hadn't occurred, so it's before us now. And in one way or another, we'll dispose of them today.
Well, none of us are experts in small cell, I don't think.
I understand.
I know I'm not.
I'm not either.
And I'm just a little bit disturbed that we're taking one side.
We're not.
Or it appears that we're taking one side, and then I hear there's a third side.
Yeah, I was just
that we
simply
haven't
calling up
seen
the item.
yet.
Right, I was simply calling up the item and then just starting everybody. Just like we're asking questions, we'll have everyone engage in the conversation from all sides. It was just, that's the item before us, and we bring it up and then allow everybody who wants to have input on it to have a conversation. That's how we were doing it.
I don't get a sense that that's been the process. I thought that you have a utilities meeting and all of those, both of them meets on a monthly basis. Is that right, Madam Chair?
And what happened was basically
So
the item
nothing
was,
is unbeknownst to the committee. It's just that you have to make a decision and try to make some common ground.
Correct.
yeah.
And Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
President, if I may, just on behalf of the Utilities Committee, it is true that this item or this issue has been before this committee as well as for this council for at least 2 years. And so we have met continually as a committee. We just had a special call meeting prior to maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, where at that time the direction was to ask the entities involved who are presented here today that they come to some sort of an agreement so that we can act in the best interest of our citizens and on behalf of the city of Birmingham. So what we've come to now is we've reached this time today where it falls on us as a council to make the decision of what is best as far as this particular regulation as it deals with small cells. I agree with you, Mr. Hoyt, in that when it's been presented to us before, and you will see that in this item number 38, as well as the other items that have been before us, we've taken into consideration right-of-ways and where these small cells would be placed, because like you, I am concerned that aesthetically it's pleasing to our citizens, to our neighborhoods. We don't want them concentrated in certain areas or on poles that are only just certain sides of the town, as well as that we have the technology, though, that is available for our citizens. So I think, Ms. Abbott, when you get the red line, you will see where that language delineates between what was before us in the other item and what is in the item that's before us.
Yeah, and what we're waiting on is them to print out the actual red line. So
But
while
I
we're
do
talking,
just want to be sure we're fair to the process that this has been brought forward to the Utilities Committee and that we've run this through that committee, and what we've reached at this point following our special call meeting. We'd asked the entities to get together. They have not come to a resolve on this. And so we want to look at what we have in our ordinance, again, that meets the needs of the citizens of Birmingham and reflects on what is financially best for the city.
Yeah, Mr. President, just a
Yeah,
follow-up.
okay.
And let me say again, I've been here and we've had bigger projects with less information, and these same folks saying they need more information, just getting here, made those kind of decisions. I've been here long enough to see that.
Thank you, Mr.
okay. How many? Let's I think there's a indication that we probably need to go into executive session. So we're going to ask Madam Attorney, City Attorney.
Thank you, President Parker. It is our recommendation that under 362587 that we go into executive session to discuss potential litigation.
Okay.
On that statement.
Okay.
I need a motion and a second.
There a motion?
Second.
Councilmember Alexander,
Aye.
Councilmember Hilliard, Councilmember Hoyt,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Quinn, Councilmember Smitherman, Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Woods, Councilmember Abbott,
Aye.
President Parker.
Yes.
Okay, and is that at the call of the chair?
Yes. Subject to call the chair. B and D and E. All right. Okay, we're ready. Okay. All right, Mr. Clark.
Alexander.
Here.
Councilmember Hilliard.
Here, present.
Councilmember Hoyt.
Present, sir.
Councilmember O'Quinn. Councilmember Smitherman. Here. Councilmember Williams. Here. Councilmember Woods. Here. Councilmember Abbott. Present. President Parker.
Present. Okay, we're good now, Mr. Clark.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, we're back on item 38. Were there any more questions or anything, or what's?
What happened?
Attorney.
Where's the attorney?
She went to the restroom.
Okay, all right. So does anybody have any? Is there any?
Can we bring the mask ordinance back up?
Okay. All right. What we're going to do is, Mr. Clark, were there some other items you just need to read just to notify us? I think there were 2 or 3 of them.
You
Can you
saying
go?
the emergency purchase?
Yes, sir. Can you just go to those and that'll give us a moment?
Table this item first.
All right. Move the table 38.
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
All right. If you want to go ahead and read your other items, just to inform us.
You want me to do 39 or just move on to 40 and 41, 42?
Just all of them, the ones that you needed just to read.
Okay, well,
Correct.
let's start with 40. 40, receiving the emergency purchase notice from the purchasing agent relative to the emergency purchase of network equipment for the Information Management Services Department. And then we have item 41, receiving the emergency purchase notice from the purchasing agent relative to the housing of highly sensitive electronic data by the Information Management Services Department. And you have 42, receiving the emergency purchase notice from the purchasing agent relative to the emergency purchase of additional laptops for the remote telework for critical staff. And that should conclude the emergency purchases.
Okay, that's all of them. But there's 1 or 2 more. Okay, all right. We are back. Now we'll make a motion. We need to bring off the table item 38. Need a motion.
Move the item.
Second.
That's back before you.
Okay, all right. We're back now to item 38. Attorney King, I'll give you a moment. Just if you could just brief update real quick.
Yes, we were not able to reach a resolution at this time. We just want you all to be mindful of the time frame.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're back 38. Are there any questions? What's the pleasure of the council? Have item 38 before us. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask our city attorney if there were specific areas in this item 38 that are particular bones of contention.
There were some areas in the definition clause. I have Attorney Stanley come up and clarify?
There are a number of exemptions and carve-outs that we have concerns about that would give Alabama Power an unfair advantage that would put the city at risk of violating federal law. Our consultant has confirmed that. AT&T, I think, would be glad to speak to that. Some of the tweaks to the definitions are minor, wouldn't be a problem. I don't think they affect it either way, but it's these number of exemptions that are included that would allow the power company to compete against the telecommunications industry. They say they're not going to, but it would allow them to.
Okay, but if we struck those items that would be in violation of federal law, if we struck those and left the things that are not critical, then would we still have an ordinance that is functional?
I think we're closer to item 8 when we do that.
Okay, but just to answer my question, if we took 38 and we struck the 7 areas that would put us in violation of federal law,
yes.
Could we move ahead?
Yes.
Because that's what I'm interested in. I don't want to violate federal law because all that's going to do is ruin our lives. But I would like to pass something today so we make that May 1st deadline. So I would be curious to know which items are the 7. Can you tell us that?
I can try to. I assume this is the same version. It's one I got just a few hours ago, so I really don't know.
Okay.
Is that
Councilor Hilliard, I just want to make sure because you might be asked. I know before one time
the two strikeout versions that I have been given seem to be the same.
Okay.
One of them has strikeouts in red and additions in underlined blue, but the other one has strikeouts or strikeouts. So I think they're the same thing. I just would like to know where those 7 items are.
I'll ask Mr. Alexander to help me with this as well. He's looked at it, but I know in one place the definition of accessory equipment. It's on page 4 of the copy I've got. Again, I don't know if we've got the paginations the same.
Yeah, we'll make sure that everybody's got the right copies. Okay. We've got one here if anybody needs it. But you want to reference it? You got it. Reference page.
Okay, accessory equipment.
There's some additional wording at the end that the term does not include the attachments, equipment, facilities of electric utility or its parents, affiliates, or subsidiaries.
So that would have to go?
It's my position, yes.
But this is part of what would put us in violation
yes,
of federal law. That's what I'm interested in. I'm only interested in...
That would be my concern.
That language that would put us in jeopardy. So that last sentence.
Yeah. The revision to the next definition of antenna has issues with it. It seems to reference personal wireless services. We've got concerns with that change as well.
So personal.
The changes to that definition.
Okay.
So on that item, Mr. Stanley, I have a question.
Okay.
No, hold on. Let Councilor Abbott finish everything. She's just asking questions.
Yeah,
She just wants information right now, but we're still before on 38 as is. Go ahead, Councilor Abbott. Yes, ma'am.
The wording we had said all types of wireless services. I don't know that you need to say all types. Wireless services, I think, would cover it, but they struck that and again added it just limited to personal wireless services. And the wording used to communicate wireless service, I'm not sure what the objection is. I've seen that in numerous other ordinances. I'm concerned I may miss some as I go through this. Page 8. This is the definition of occupy. And at the end, there's wording added again that the term does not exclude the business activities of electric utility that's regulated or its parent, affiliate, or subsidiary when placing a tangible thing in the right of way. That tangible thing could be a small cell facility under this wording.
So that last sentence.
The last sentence we would say does not need to be there.
Okay.
What term was that again?
It's
Page 6. Page 6.
occupy. It's on page 7 and 8. Again, on my copy, the word occupy.
And it's line 26. That might help.
It's on page 6 of the what's in the
Those
packet
lines.
for 38.
Yeah, it's just a little different.
We're not amending anything right now. We're just talking through. So everything stays as is, but we're trying to get information. Councilor Abbott is seeking information. Am I right at this moment?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
On the definition of wireless service provider and wireless infrastructure provider, we would suggest those retaining the original wording on those definitions. Again, we had a definition that addressed regulated utilities when they're providing utility services, but it's been modified to expand beyond that. In support of the utility could be virtually anything, any for-profit enterprise.
And that was on item 40?
It's in 41 and 42. I think it's the very similar changes. Sorry. I think we go towards nearly the end. I will point out on page 32, for some reason the power company is striking a provision addressing undergrounding. I would make 2 points. One, if they're to be exempt from this, they really shouldn't be concerned about this. But striking it will limit the city's ability to have a regulation of these activities, because if it's not included in your regulation, you can't enforce it.
Okay, so all that strikeout.
On page 32 under the
A.
undergrounding, yes, A.
Okay. Let me just make sure I'm where we are. These are just talking. This is not that we're actually the document.
That's
Item
correct.
38 has not been changed.
No,
you were asking her questions
Yeah,
about
I'm
the 7
asking
points.
the question
Yeah.
about the points
The 7
that would
points, okay.
cause a federal lawsuit,
I
or
got
that
it.
would enable a federal
I got it.
lawsuit.
That's all. I was just trying to clarify. That's all.
Here's
Okay.
something we agree on, page 38 and 39. There's wording that at Councilor Williams' request in the committee meeting was added to address what happens if the small cell is overturned. The power company said they did not have that wording, and so it shows as a strikeout, but they have no objection to that.
Okay, and that's section 15.
Section 15A at bottom of 38, top of page 39.
Okay. Is that all?
No, I think maybe the biggest, or one of the 2 or 3 biggest, is on page 40. This is the actual exemption wording in section 15C. The first sentence in particular, as it's changed, says the ordinance will not apply to poles, attachments, facilities, business activities, or structures by a electric utility regulated by the PSC, period. That's a extremely broad exemption. And then the following sentence And what we had done there is tried to track some exemption wording that's in the state legislation that the power company, we understand, is in support of. We tried to track that in the wording of this section and then some of our definitions, and we're being asked to change that. So the next sentence, again, we would suggest it read as originally provided.
And that's C2?
This is in the C1. It's all in C1.
All in C1. Is that all?
That's all.
And I have a question on page 15.
Yes, ma'am.
Under E, prohibitions, is that language under item 1, is that problematic or is that okay?
I'm sorry, which section?
Page 15, it's section 6, section 6E, prohibitions, item 1.
I don't know that we have a particular objection. I don't think it's necessary because it says the prohibition doesn't extend if the power company basically wants to put a utility pole that's not used for small cells. That would not be covered by this ordinance anyway. So I don't.
Okay, so there's no problem.
I don't think there's a problem with that. Let's see. Section. Tom, what number? It's not section 5. Okay.
And that's the one I just asked about.
Oh, okay, so the industry says they have an issue with that.
And that's all.
I think
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
That was what I wanted to know, is just how to keep ourselves out of hot water.
Okay. All right. We're item 38. Anybody else got any questions before we call for the vote on item 38? Dr. Quinn, I'm just going to start down there. Council Hilliard, President Pro Tem, Council Smithman, Council Woods, Council Williams. Yes, sir. Okay.
It looks like in the audience that we have representatives from the different groups. Do we have anybody here that is representing, I mean, I see AT&T, but do we have anybody here that's representing the other telecom providers, Crown Castle and Verizon? Sir, is there any way that you could come forward and tell us during this last meeting while we were recessed, are you guys amenable to the language in 38? And then I want to hear from AT&T as well.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Chris Grissom. I'm with Bradley Arant here in town. I represent Verizon. Verizon's position right now is that either version 8 or 38, we would be agreeable to in order to get the ordinance to move forward. Now, as Tom and Jim have mentioned, there are some issues in there with complying with federal law, and we know that, but at this point, we would like some kind of ordinance in place so we can move forward.
Okay, thank you, sir. And then AT&T, do y'all share the same sentiment?
Tom Alexander with AT&T, represent AT&T, and the answer is we do not, because under federal law, you have two provisions. I won't do a long story, but under section 47 U.S.C. 253, if a local governing authority, the city council, passes an ordinance that's prima facie violates federal law, then you've got an issue. under Section 332, once you pass that ordinance, how you apply it. If it's applied in a discriminatory manner between providers, which we believe some of these provisions would in the nature of the application, because Alabama Power has an affiliate that's exempted numerous times in here that has a wireless license and provides wireless service, yet they're not going to be called a wireless provider under the proposal in 38. So we object to it on those basis. But I will say, I understand where Verizon is on saying, we've been working 3 years on this, I have, and with the committee for more than 2, and we are ready for an ordinance. We would very much like you to approve a lawful, valid, reasonable ordinance. So we're delighted that we're here today, but we would recommend you go with the one the City Legal Department has put forward, because it does not violate federal law. So, do you have any other questions?
Oh, what were those federal laws again?
USC 47 USC Section 253 is when a local governing authority is not to pass a regulation that violates the discrimination, things like that. And once it's passed, then it's how it's applied, how it goes, how we come apply for a permit, or if the affiliate from Alabama Power doesn't have to apply for a permit, that's discriminatory. And that's under USC 47, United States Code, Section 332.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilor Williams, got anything else?
Nope, that is it. Thank you.
Councilor Woods?
Attorney Stanley, are we not able to add some language? I think the intent was to basically make sure that everyone is going to try to implement 5G towers has to come and go through the same process. Can we not implicitly state that, whether or not you're a subsidiary or affiliate, can we not add that language?
We feel like the ordinance, this 8A, 8 covers that. It puts everybody on, it levels the playing field. Nobody has a special treatment. And if the power company is engaging in things that don't involve small cells, it's our strong opinion they're not covered by that.
I guess my question was in reference to 38. Is there language you can add to that to achieve?
It would be, I think, striking the wording we've just gone through.
All right, so my question is more so specifically, can you add language that implicitly states that you cannot participate in any, basically, however you word it, basically providing this service through directly or through subsidiaries, affiliates, for the purpose of wireless service outside of the need for utility delivery?
That would be in conflict with a lot of the exemption wording that's in there, and I don't know how a court would read that.
You good? Okay. All right. We've gone around. We need a motion.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
I move at this time that we approve item 38 with the language stricken that causes the federal violations.
Okay. I'm just trying to say, I don't know, what's the will of the
So we want to be in violation of federal law?
I think the word was anything we do, is a possibility. And so we passed this, and if there's some things we need to come back on, there's options out there. One, the mayor can always, the options could veto it, send it back, we could look at it, or we could always come back and modify the language as we move forward. So what we're faced with right now is it's fallen in our lap at the very last minute, and we're under a deadline that parties could not reach a compromise, and now it's before us, and now we have to act. That's why I asked everybody, compromise, meet, try to work it out. They hadn't come to a decision, so it's before us now. And so now we are dealing with 38 and we're gonna move on 38, vote it up or down, and we're gonna move forward. So that's kind of where we are. I mean, I wanted everyone else to figure that out before it got to us. That's why we had committee, that's why we had the lawyers, everybody working over the last 3 years. It took 3 years and they couldn't resolve it, and we're under a deadline of May 1st, and it's before us the week before. So, you know, usually parties will work together and compromise. That's not there. We've gotten indication from Verizon and Crown that they are amenable with either one. So we're down to AT&T as opposed to item 38. There's not a consensus on item 8. Parties can't come together after this last-ditch effort for them to meet for 30 or 35 minutes to try to work it out since we've been meeting. It's before us now. We're going to call. If you want to make a motion to see if we can amend it, we can see if we get traction. If not, no. What I'm saying is we're going to vote on 38. That's where we are. 38 is before us. So, Madam Abbott, do you want to offer a substitute motion? But that's where we are, and we're going to vote. So do you want to?
And my motion was simply to strike the language that's in violation of federal law.
Okay.
Just that.
I understand.
Just remove the language that puts us in violation of federal law. That seems logical.
Okay. All right. All right, that was a motion. Didn't get a second. Mr. Clark.
It didn't get a second, so.
I understand. We're back. We're for final passage of 38.
So are you ready to vote?
There's a motion, and yes, we're ready to vote.
All right, Council Pro Tem Alexander.
Aye.
Councilmember Hilliard. Aye. Councilmember Hoyt.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Quinn.
No.
Councilmember Smitherman.
Abstain.
One second here. Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Woods.
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott.
No.
President Parker.
Yes. All right. Where are we? All right, that item passes. Council Williams, you have a motion? We're done with item 38. Did you want to talk more about the mass? Do you have some more conversation on that, or?
Yeah, can we bring up mass item? I don't know.
Okay, all right. Ms. Clark, can we revisit item 43, I think?
We need a motion to reconsider.
Motion to reconsider 43.
Which item are we reconsidering?
Second.
43.
Was it just to?
Really bring it back off the bill for Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, are we amenable to add, since the governor has set forth the date of May 15th to that mask ordinance? Set a sunset date on the mask ordinance of May 15th? Since the governor's changes are in effect until May 15th. The ones that she just announced?
Safer at home.
I want it to be concurrent. Are you good with that? All right, so I'll make a motion that we amend.
Reconsider it first. You gotta get it back before us.
I thought we already.
Wait a minute.
We didn't get a motion.
Hold on. Here's where we are. Councilor Williams is saying, based on the information that the governor's indicated that her shelter in place has been extended to May 15th, is that we put May 15th in the mask ordinance. From that, sir? Okay, face cover, I'm sorry. Face cover. And it lines up, you're saying because it lines up with the, I'm just trying to give information and we can discuss it, but you're saying because that lines up with the governor's extension. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay. That's the information. Now is for, yes, sir, Councilor Hilliard.
Well, I guess I'm just asking, so the intent of that is to allow more time for people to comply with it, or?
No.
No, it goes
Instead
into
of an
effect.
indefinite ordinance where people have to wear a mask indefinitely, we have to come back and repeal it.
So it
Then
goes,
this has a sunset date on it.
Okay.
So most cities do 30 days.
that we revisit it at that particular time, just let it ride as it is, because even though I respect what, is my mic on?
yeah. So what you're saying, Councilor Hilliard, is that we note it and we come back on May, whatever the Tuesday is that the 15th?
I think it's the 14th or
The 14th? Can we all agree to, on the 14th, Mr. Mayor, we all just know to come back and revisit it?
Yeah, based on, and let it be based on the science of what's happening at that time, the numbers, and if we see that it is
May
not
12th.
beneficial to the community of the constituents we represent, we extend it beyond where it is now. But whatever we do, let's keep in mind the safety and the security of our constituents.
All right. Where are we? Where are we? Mr. Mayor, you're... Okay, all right. So, Council Williams, are you amenable to us addressing it back on the 14th again, of May 14th, to see if you're asking to add language to the ordinance. I'm just trying to get all the points here.
Okay. I guess I'd like to go back and change my original vote to no on the mask ordinance, and we can just leave it as it is.
Okay. All right. So
I need to get it back before you.
we need to get it back before
Motion to
us.
reconsider.
Motion to reconsider, and then when we do the final vote, is that the way we do it,
Well,
Mr.
what
Clerk?
happened is, after the motion to reconsider, it's like it never happened. It's
Okay.
right before you, I need UC again, and then I need to pass the item.
Okay.
I'm
No.
sorry? Because
he wants to change his vote on the final vote, Mr. Hilliard. So we're gonna motion to reconsider. Okay.
all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All
Okay.
opposed. Now I need a
Now,
motion for UC to pass to them.
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion on the item. now.
all right. Second.
All right, now it's back before you.
Okay. Now we're gonna motion to approve, and you do and now we can go through roll call on the mask. I mean on the covering. I'm sorry, face covering. All right, we're ready, Mr. Clark.
Just so I get the motions right, motion to approve was it Smith? No?
O'Quinn
here
and
you
I.
didn't. Okay, O'Quinn and you, okay, I'm sorry. All right, so we're ready for voting on it. Councilmember Alexander?
Aye.
Councilmember Hilliard? Aye. Councilmember Hoyt?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Smitherman?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
No.
Councilmember Woods?
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott?
Aye.
Councilmember Parker? President
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
All right.
All right, that item passes 8-1. Okay. All right, does that deal with everything?
I didn't do the other communications from the clerk, I'm sorry. I missed
Okay.
those two. Item 33, receiving the emergency purchase notice from the purchasing agent relative to the emergency repair of the air conditioning unit at fire station number 19. And item 34, receiving the emergency purchase notice from the purchasing agent relative to the emergency repair of the water heater at the police south precinct. And I think we also missed addendum item 39.
No, we passed that one. We just changed it to a resolution urging Jefferson County delegation.
I don't know if we ever took it up, though.
Okay, well, let's.
I know we talked about it.
Yeah, but I thought we put it on consent and we,
I don't have it on consent. But
okay, we'll just take up item 39.
Okay. Item 39, resolution changing, urging the Jefferson County Legislative Delegation to propose and support changes to current Alabama law so as to allow no excuse absentee voting. And as Council President stated, that should be a resolution and not an ordinance, so.
Okay,
need a
move the
motion
item.
on it.
Move the item.
Second.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry. I missed who made the motion. Okay. All right, voting should be open, or somebody want to discuss it, I'm sorry.
No, we're ready to vote.
All right.
All right.
Councilmember Alexander, Pro Tem.
Aye.
Councilmember Hilliard. Councilmember Hoyt.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Quinn. Councilmember Smitherman.
Yes.
Councilmember Williams.
You're not finna disperse.
Councilmember Woods. Councilmember Abbott.
Aye.
President Parker.
Yes.
All right, that passes.
All right. Council Williams.
No, hold it.
Oh, no. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, we have it. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't
Don't take
hear
it,
you.
Hoyt. Don't take
Had
it.
me to wait and then.
Okay, yes, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead, Councilor.
yeah, well, Mr. Mayor, what are we doing? That power building, the power elementary school, stuff has started falling from the building. And I'm afraid, you know, we have a lot of homeless folk who in and around that area, something gonna fall and hit somebody. And so, do you think that we can stabilize that building, or just what we gonna do with that? Because it's really, the homeless are there. Are we gonna save it, or I don't know what to...
Councilor Hoyt, thank you for the question. As I understand, which is why I just asked the two gentlemen, we don't currently own that building. That building is leased out to another party.
That's Sam Frazier.
And I couldn't tell you, sir. I don't have that
I
memorized.
think they formed a nonprofit or something.
In addition to that, I think the reason you couldn't, Michael Calvert, I think the other thing that was shared is that the building, because it's a historic building that's not 85% burned, they're not legal. They would have to go through a whole legal hurdle to tear the building down. Okay. So I think there's been some start and stop based on the ability to get some private funding they need. But as it relates to the issue concerning who's in it, I can reach out to the ownership and tell them maybe they should engage in.
Yeah, because stuff's starting to fall from
yes,
the
sir.
building, and you know where you don't have to tell you, but
I know you
have that area. They,
yes, sir.
You know, they gather there.
Yes, sir. I think they could do a better job at fencing off the building and protecting their property.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Very good.
Okay, you good with that, Council Hoyt? Okay, and you'll just report back, Mr. Mayor, to everybody?
Yeah.
You'll report back to us? Yes, sir. Okay, all right. Anything else, Council Hoyt? All right, hold on. Council Woods, yes, sir, one more thing. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Did want to acknowledge District 1, one of our greatest residents, Mr. Arthur Welch, passed away this week. I want to acknowledge him. We are preparing a resolution. But like I said, he was just a really strong, really wise individual. Anytime I got a chance to speak to him, I always had some encouragement, insights, and had a good way of telling me what I needed to do better. So I always appreciated and enjoyed seeing him. And so we lost a tremendous asset in our district, and did want to just acknowledge him.
Yes, sir.
Second, are you making a resolution? Second?
No, the item.
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed, the item itself.
Move the item.
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Okay. Yeah.
Councilor.
Yeah,
Yes,
Mr. President, and certainly Mr. Welch was one of my fraternity brothers, and of course his wife Gwendolyn has always been very active in this community, and so we appreciate them. I told him I thought they were a match made in heaven, because they were thicker than thieves, quite frankly, and we just really appreciate that, and you know, the kind of contributions that they've made, because even if Mrs. Welch did something in the community, you had to have the consent of your husband, to be able to do that, and it took her away from home a lot of times, and so, but to see them in these latter years traveling, I'm tasting food via pictures and what have you, because they were going to some fabulous places around the country, if not a part of the world. Yeah, around the world. And so I got a chance to go with them. And so I appreciate that in them, but they really were a very wonderful couple, and so he'll be sorely missed. But I just want to express that as well. And the other thing is my daughter, Maya Kristen Hoyt, will be graduating on Sunday, even though they're not having a graduation, from University of Alabama Law School. So we're just very proud of that, very proud of what she's been able to accomplish. And she received an award from the university on yesterday for the trial advocacy team. She and the team that competed nationally, where regionally they came in first place, and then the other one they made it to the third round or something like that. And so we were very pleased, very happy with them. What they were able to do. And so and then the other thing is my wife had a birthday on the 21st, and so I want to say again happy birthday to her. And so my next 2 weeks are very money consuming. I just want y'all to know that, because then you got Mother's Day, and then and I want to wish my wife a happy 30th. Oh, I get a chance next Tuesday, but on May 5th we would have married 30 years to the same woman. So I'm just thanking God. Yeah, thank you.
To the same one.
To the same woman.
I move for adjournment.
All in favor, let me
Be
know.
a nonconformist conformist. That's how you win. I know it. That's okay.